Welcome back. It's the Mad Hatter, Dr. Big Mike. I'm back with some more predictions. As I told you last week, I'm going to try to make this a consistent deal since things are going to be slowing down. Things are still pretty fast. That's why I haven't been able to talk to you in post fight UFC Brazil, where Rosie got head bombed into the next galaxy. And as a result of that head bomb, that's what I call it, Jessica Andrade absolutely head bombed Rosie into the next galaxy. And what we have to do to find Rosie, we have to go on Star Trek warp speed to find her neck somewhere in a different solar system. Rosie, as I predicted, was going to lose her strawweight undisputed title. That's what she did. Before I go into the fight card for tonight, I do want to say that Rose was absolutely picking her apart. The only thing that I was worried about was the fact that Jessica was really killing Rosie's lead leg with those inside kicks. Other than that, the only chance that Jessica Andrade had was to take Rosie down and grapple with her, and that's what she tried. The first time she tried it, Rosie had planned I guess it was a reverse arm bar, and then the second time, Jessica kind of stuck her head out and she adjusted, and Rosie didn't adjust, and Rosie was, like I said, she was head bombed into the next galaxy, and Captain Kirk is still looking for her neck. All right, we have an interesting card in Rochester, New York. As you know, Dr. Big Mike is from New York, born and raised in the Bronx, and this card will be taking place about 300 miles northwest of the Bronx. Yes, that's how big New York State is. It's a huge state. All right, I did look at the preliminaries, and I'm scanning them again. I'm going to be honest. I really haven't done much work when it comes to this card. You know, when I glanced the fights, I mean, they look to have about 11 to 12 fights. I see a Patrick Cummins sighting. He's going to be fighting Ed Herman. That should be a decent light heavyweight bout. They're both just journeymen at this point in their careers. They have already made their run. As you know, Pat Cummins made his UFC debut against Daniel Cormier, and since then they have offered him a contract. And I think he went as high as being ranked number 6, but could not obtain that breakthrough win so that he can challenge for the title. And really, the title has been held by either John Jones or Daniel Cormier. And as we know, Patrick Cummins lost to Daniel Cormier in his UFC debut. So he was really kind of stymied there, but I see there is a Patrick Cummins sighting. Also, there's a Danny Roberts sighting and a Desmond Green sighting. Danny Roberts, welterweight, and Desmond Green is a lightweight. Those should be interesting bouts, but nothing really to turn your head on. The featured bout of the prelims is Ladd versus Eubanks. I'm not sure what's going on with Eubanks. She was having words with the UFC brass. Not smart whatsoever. If someone's signing your paycheck, you keep your mouth shut, you zip it, so that you have money to put in your pocket. All right, now let's get to the main card. As we know, the main event is Dos Anjos versus Lee. Lee will be making his welterweight debut. There are 6 bouts on the main card. There's a couple bouts I want to talk about. Well, maybe 4 bouts I want to talk about on the main card. The first one is Davi Ramos. For some reason, he makes me think of Dan Henderson. He just have that look of a young Dan Henderson. Let's hope that his career starts to take off the way Dan Henderson had that Hall of Fame career. Also, Charles Oliveras or Oliveira. Um, Again, I'm not even sure what to even say about this guy. This guy wins one and puts in a couple clunkers, and then he wins two and then put in like 3 or 4 clunkers in a row. I'm not even sure what to make of this guy. For some reason, he's ranked the 15th lightweight in the world, and he is not. Okay, I'm going to move right along. I see Megan Anderson is fighting Felicia Spencer, women's women's featherweight bout at 145 pounds. As we know, if Chris Cyborg had not lost to the bantamweight champ and made her a double champ, that is Nunes, Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson would have already challenged Cyborg for that featherweight championship. Right now, the featherweight is in limbo. We do have a Megan Anderson sighting. She has not fought since she fought an opponent that I guess she fired a kick, and the kick landed on the opponent's eyeball, and the opponent stopped fighting, so that is ruled a TKO. A TKO for Megan Anderson. I believe that was back at the end of last year. And that was a disappointing fight. That was a really disappointing fight for me as an MMA fan. I need to see Megan Anderson, who absolutely got mauled by the preacher's daughter. I need to see her have a decent fight before I can even say that she is a contender for any kind of championship. And it seems to me that she's going to have to cut about 10 more pounds and be a bantamweight to even have a shot at a UFC title. Okay, now the co-main, I'm going to just skip right past that. And I'm going to go to the main event, which is Dos Anjos versus Kevin Lee. These two have a connection. Their connection is that they both once fought in the UFC lightweight division. Dos Anjos, a former lightweight champion, and Kevin Lee, a lightweight championship contender. He did fight for the interim championship against Tony Ferguson. We all know how that ended up. Tony Ferguson almost snapped his spinal cord in half. Okay, and then we all know that Kevin Lee cried. And the reason why I'm bringing up the fact that he cried is because when Daniel Cormier cried after losing to John Jones the second time, the first one that had a negative comment about it was Kevin Lee. And it's all right to cry, okay? The research says that crying at least once a day is the healthiest thing for all human beings. And wanting something really bad that you cried after you did not obtain it, there's no shame in that whatsoever. So, that's why I'm bringing up the fact that Kevin Lee cried, because he said something negative about it, and he turned around and then he does it. But this is an interesting bout. For the first time, Kevin Lee is not cutting that extra 15 pounds. He probably feels hydrated. He probably feels bulky. He probably feels a bit heavy. I'm not sure how he's going to come into this bout after a very shaky performance against Al Iaquinta. Al Iaquinta absolutely beat his butt. All right, his last fight, and we all know what happened to Iaquinta when he fought Donald Cerrone. Donald Cerrone absolutely. I felt bad for Iaquinta. He absolutely took what I call a supreme butt whipping. All right, so Dos Anjos versus Lee. This is a hard one to call, but I am going to say that Dos Anjos is a bit too old. And I said that about Anderson Silva for his last fight. Anderson Silva being 44, and he's fighting against a young, hungry lion that's just ready to bite every part of his body off. And the fact that Anderson Silva blew out his right knee on a leg kick, that is pretty common. A lot of fighters take that kick and keep on fighting. Anderson Silva, like I said, he's a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. There's no need for Anderson Silva to be fighting again. He's going to get hurt. And I just don't want to see this guy knocked into oblivion. He was already kicked into oblivion. I mean, that kneecap is orbiting Earth as we speak. Okay, it's been caught. Anderson Silva's kneecap has been caught in the Earth gravitational pull, and it's orbiting the Earth as the moon does. All right, and he needs to retire before his head goes into orbit. All right, so also I do want to make a quick comment about the last card, BJ Penn. That's another one. BJ Penn is already a Hall of Famer. He should not be fighting. He's just slow. I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't have the skill set to teach, to coach, to mentor, to be a active speaker and representative for the UFC. Those things are within his grasp. But a competitive fight, and now when you're losing to Guida, oh, come on, man. Come on now. Okay, it's time for BJ Penn to hang up. I really hope that Dana White does the right thing with these two aging fighters, these two fighters who just don't want to call it quits. They're looking for that past glory, and they are not going to find it because there's one opponent that will beat you, that you cannot escape from, and his name is called Father Time. Now back to this main event, I do pick Kevin Lee simply because he's the younger fighter. He's probably the more hungry fighter, but here's the problem for Kevin Lee. Rafael Dos Anjos is a champion. Even though he's aging, I think that he should probably quit. I think that he has the real possibility of getting hurt. I think that Kevin Lee should not do any stand-up with this guy. This guy is brutal on the feet. I know Kevin Lee thinks that he's just as good on his feet, but he needs to go back to his wrestling base, take down Dos Anjos, and beat him to a pulp. That's his only chance of winning this fight. If he wants to trade punches, we saw that he could not even match up with Al Iaquinta. And if he has any chance of winning this fight, okay, he needs to take Dos Anjos down. And Dos Anjos, on the other hand, needs to keep this fight standing. He needs to keep this fight standing. That's his only chance in the world to beat Kevin Lee. So I'm going to pick Kevin Lee simply because he's the younger fighter, and I'm telling you about these hungry lions that are coming up. I say it again this week. Kevin Lee should win this main event and get back on track and be noticed in the welterweight division. I'm so happy that he finally went up to the welterweight division. He was just absolutely, he looked like death was knocking on his door by cutting down to 155 pounds. And now he only has to cut down to 170, which I'm sure was a lot more, it was easier, it was a lot more doable. And I'm looking forward to a great main event. So, once again, this is the Mad Hatter, Dr. Big Mike, and I'll be back post-fight. If I'm not back post-fight, I do another one of these previews to a fight card by also referring back to the last bouts. Enjoy the fights, and I will see you soon.